Look at the world around you. The school you attended, the medicine you take, the gasoline in your car, and the very structure of the modern economy. You think these things evolve naturally? You think you are living in a free world? Think again. You are living in a system designed over 100 years ago by one man. A man who didn't just want to be rich, he wanted to be the owner of the world. His name was John D. Rockefeller. History books call him a philanthropist, but the streets of the 19th century knew him as the monster of Cleveland. He was the world's first billionaire, but his true wealth wasn't in money. It was in control. He didn't just build a company, he built a blueprint. A blueprint so powerful that even today, a century after his death, you cannot escape it. By the time this story ends, you will realize that you don't own your life. You are just a tenant in Rockefeller's world. This is the dark, unfiltered truth of the man who created the system you can never escape. 5 o'clock to 1500. The origin, the son of a con man. To understand the empire, you must understand the bloodline. John was born in 1839 to a father known as Devil Bill. Bill Rockefeller was a traveling con artist. He sold cancer cures that were nothing but oil and laxatives. He would brag about cheating his own sons to make them sharp. While other kids played, young John was lent money by his father at 10% interest. He learned early, trust no one, track every penny, and never show emotion. At 16, he got a job as a bookkeeper. He recorded every single cent in a small red book he called Ledger A. This wasn't a notebook, it was his Bible. He didn't care about luxury. He cared about the math. Then came 1859. Titusville, Pennsylvania. Black gold was struck. While everyone else was rushing to dig wells and getting dirty in the mud, John sat in his office, watching. He realized that the money wasn't in the digging. The money was in the refining. If you owned a well, you might go dry. But if you own the refinery, every drop of oil on the planet has to pass through your hands. And John D. Rockefeller was about to put his hands around the throat of the world. Rockefeller didn't like competition. To him, competition was a sin. It was wasteful. He believed in a new order, one giant company that controlled everything. He called it Standard Oil. He didn't just outwork his rivals, he annihilated them. He went to the railroads and made a secret deal. A deal that would be illegal today. He told the railroads, I will give you all my oil to transport, but in exchange, you will give me a discount. And here is the kicker. Every time you transport my competitor's oil, you will pay ME a part of the fee they pay you. Think about that. His rivals were unknowingly paying Rockefeller to stay in business. One by one, he visited every refinery in Cleveland. He gave them two choices: sell your business to me for a low price, or I will bury you. If they refused, he would drop his prices so low that they would lose money every day. He would buy up all the barrels so they had nothing to put their oil in. He would bribe their employees to spy on them. In just 3 months, in what history calls the Cleveland Massacre, Rockefeller wiped out 22 of his 26 competitors. He was 32 years old, and he owned the lights of America. But oil was just the beginning. Now he wanted the mind of the nation. By the 1880s, Standard Oil controlled 90% of the oil in the United States. He was richer than most countries. But with power comes a target. The public began to realize that one man held the power to turn off the lights of every home in the country. He was called the Octopus. His tentacles reached into the Senate, the banks, and the newspapers. He didn't care about the laws. He said, I have ways of making money that you know nothing of. He created the trust, a legal structure that allowed him to control hundreds of companies across the globe from a single office in New York. He was a ghost. You didn't see him, but you felt his grip every time you bought a candle or a gallon of kerosene. But a storm was coming. A young woman named Ida Tarbell, whose father had been ruined by Rockefeller, was about to write the most dangerous book in history. And a president named Teddy Roosevelt was sharpening his axe to cut down the giant. But Rockefeller was 10 steps ahead. He knew that if they broke his company, he would only get richer. And he knew that if he wanted to stay in power forever, he had to change more than just the oil business. He had to change education and medicine. Have you ever wondered why the school system feels like a factory? The bells, the rows of desks, the focus on obedience rather than creativity? It's not an accident. It's a design. By the early 1900s, Rockefeller realized that a nation of free-thinking entrepreneurs was dangerous to his monopoly. He didn't want a nation of thinkers. He wanted a nation of workers. People who were smart enough to operate the machines, but quiet enough to never question the boss. In 1903, he created the General Education Board. He poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the American school system. But this wasn't charity. It was an investment. He famously said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." He funded the curriculum. He decided what history would be taught and what would be erased. He shifted the focus to rote memorization and standardized testing. He turned schools into a filtering system to find the most obedient children and put them into management, while the rest were sent to the factories. Every time you sat at a desk and waited for a bell to tell you when you could eat or speak, you were following the Rockefeller blueprint. He didn't just own the oil in your car, he now owned the thoughts in your head. But the biggest move was yet to come. Before 1910, medicine was diverse. People used herbs, plants, and natural healing. It was cheap, and it worked. But Rockefeller saw a problem. You can't patent the plant. If you can't patent it, you can't own it. He wanted to turn medicine into a chemical industry. Why? Because he owned the chemical plants that were a byproduct of his oil refineries. He commissioned the Flexner Report. He used his massive wealth to fund only the medical schools that taught petrochemical medicine. Any school that taught natural healing or nutrition was stripped of its funding and shut down. He created the American Medical Association, AMA, to act as the gatekeeper. Suddenly, if a doctor didn't prescribe a chemical drug made in a laboratory, he was labeled a quack and lost his license. Think about the irony. The man who sold toxic oil byproduct was now the savior of global health. He turned the human body into a profit center. Chronic disease became a business model. A patient cured is a customer lost. A patient managed on drugs for life is a gold mine. Standard Oil wasn't just a company anymore. It was the blood flowing through the veins of the modern medical industrial complex. By 1914, Rockefeller was the most hated man in America. The Ludlow Massacre, where his company guards killed striking miners and their families, was the breaking point. People were burning effigies of him in the streets. He needed a miracle. He hired Ivy Lee, the father of modern public relations. Lee told him, "Stop hiding. Start giving away dimes to children in public. Build libraries. Build universities. Put your name on everything." John began to pour money into philanthropy. He created the Rockefeller Foundation. On the surface, he was saving the world from hookworm and hunger. Under the surface, he was using these foundations to avoid taxes and gain control over foreign governments. He realized that if you give a man a loaf of bread, he will forget that you stole his farm. The monster of Cleveland died and was reborn as the great benefactor. But the system he built was now a living, breathing entity. It no longer needed him. It had its own lawyers, its own politicians, and its own banks. The Rockefeller family moved into the shadows, but their hands remained on the steering wheel of the world. John D. Rockefeller died in 1937 at the age of 97. He achieved his goal. He owned the world. Today, the Rockefeller name is often hidden behind layers of holding companies and global organizations. But the blueprint remains. From the World Health Organization to the United Nations, from the textbooks in your hands to the pills in your cabinet, the system is working exactly as he intended. You are not a citizen. You are a human resource. The question is, now that you know the blueprint, can you ever truly be free? Or are you just another drop of oil in the machine? Perhaps we'll never meet again. So master the system before it masters you. Follow Nitex mindset for the truths they want to keep buried. Stay aware. If you want to own the world, you don't just need money. You need to own the source of money. In November 1910, a private train car with shaded windows left New York City. Inside were the most powerful men on earth. Representing the Rockefeller Empire was Nelson Aldrich, a senator and Rockefeller's right-hand man. Alongside him were representatives from the House of Morgan and the Warburgs. Their destination? A private hunt club on Jekyll Island, Georgia. For 10 days, they stayed in total secrecy. They didn't even use their last names, so the servants wouldn't know who they were. What were they doing? They were writing the blueprint for the Federal Reserve. They created a central bank that was neither federal nor had any reserves. It was a private cartel of bankers, with the Rockefellers at the head of the table. In 1913, while most of Congress was away for Christmas, they pushed the bill through. From that moment on, the U.S. government no longer controlled its own money. They had to borrow it from the Rockefeller-linked banks with interest. Every dollar in your pocket is a debt owed to them. They created a system of infinite debt where the interest can never be paid back. You are working for a currency that they print out of thin air, while they buy up the real assets, the land, the gold, and the energy. But the masterstroke came later. Rockefeller's oil empire needed a way to ensure that the entire world would always need the American dollar. In the 1970s, a deal was struck with the House of Saud. The deal was simple. We will protect your oil fields, and in return, you will ensure that every single barrel of oil sold in the world is sold only for US dollars. This was the birth of the petrodollar. Now, every country, China, Japan, Germany, India, had to hold massive amounts of US dollars just to buy oil to keep their lights on. This meant the Rockefellers and their banking allies could print as much money as they wanted, and the rest of the world would absorb the inflation. They didn't just control the oil. They forced the world to use their private paper to buy it. If any leader tried to break this system, like Gaddafi or Saddam, they were eliminated. The system was protected by the most powerful military in history, all funded by the debt that the Rockefellers controlled. Rockefeller once said, "The way to make money is to buy when blood is running in the streets." The banking system they designed is built to fail periodically. They create a bubble by printing money and making loans easy. People buy houses, stocks, and businesses. Then, the bankers suddenly contract the money supply. Interest rates rise. People lose their jobs. They can't pay their loans. And then, the Rockefellers and their too-big-to-fail banks swoop in. They buy up thousands of homes and businesses for pennies on the dollar. The Great Depression of 1929, the 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 economic reset, these aren't accidents. They are harvests. They are moments when the elite transfer the wealth of the middle class into their own vaults. While you are struggling to pay your rent, they are using the money they printed out of thin air to buy the very roof over your head. You are not a player in this game. You are the prize. And now, we move into the final phase. The Rockefellers have long planned for the end of physical cash. Why? Because cash is anonymous. Cash is freedom. They are pushing for CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. A digital dollar that they can track, monitor, and turn off at will. If you buy too much meat, if you drive too many miles, or if you speak out against the system, your money will simply stop working. The blueprint John D. Rockefeller started in the oil fields of Cleveland is reaching its ultimate conclusion: total digital slavery. They own your education. They own your medicine. They own your money. And soon, they will own your access to society itself. But there is one thing they cannot own: your awareness. The system only works if you stay asleep. Perhaps we'll never meet again. So wake up before the screen goes dark. Follow Nitex mindset to see the strings before they pull you. Stay ungovernable. John D. Rockefeller Jr. once stood in New York City and looked at a massive plot of land along the East River. In 1946, he didn't just donate $8.5 million to buy that land. He bought the seat of a new global government. That land became the headquarters of the United Nations. On the surface, the UN was created for world peace. But if you look deeper into the Rockefeller archives, you see a different story. They wanted to create a system where national sovereignty, the idea that a country can rule itself, would become obsolete. They created a web of global organizations: the WHO for health, the World Bank for finance, and the UNESCO for culture. All of them funded and steered by the Rockefeller and Ford foundations. Think about it. Why does a private family have more influence over global health policy than your own elected officials? Because they built the table everyone is sitting at. They don't need to win an election when they own the organization that tells the presidents what to do. They shifted the power from we the people to we the elite, hidden behind the blue flag of the UN. But the most chilling part of the blueprint is what they planned for you. The Rockefellers were obsessed with eugenics, the idea that the human population should be managed like a herd of cattle. They funded the Population Council and pushed for global programs to limit birth rates in developing nations. They saw humanity not as individuals with souls, but as human resources that needed to be optimized. They funded research into GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and took control of the global seed supply. Why? Because, as Henry Kissinger, a longtime Rockefeller protege, famously said, "Control oil and you control nations. Control food and you control the people." They integrated the medical system, the food supply, and the global health organizations into a single trap. If they can control what you eat and what medicine you are forced to take, they own the very chemistry of your body. You become a biological asset in their global ledger. We are now entering the final stage of the 100-year plan. They call it the Great Reset, or Agenda 2030. The goal is simple. You will own nothing, and you will be happy. They are moving to eliminate private property. They want you to rent your house from them, rent your car from them, and even rent your digital identity. They are using the climate crisis, a concept they help promote through their massive environmental foundations, to justify a new carbon credit system. Every move you make, Every steak you eat, every mile you drive will be tracked and taxed. It is the ultimate monopoly. John D. Rockefeller started by monopolizing oil. His descendants are now monopolizing life itself. They want a world where there are only two classes: the architects, them, and the tenants, you. A world where every human being is connected to a central digital grid, monitored by AI, and controlled by the same financial system that was born on Jekyll Island in 1910. As we close this 20,000-word journey, look back at Ledger A, the small red book of a 16-year-old bookkeeper. That book grew until it covered the entire planet. John D. Rockefeller is dead, but his system is more alive than ever. It is the air you breathe, the school you hate, the debt you owe, and the fear you feel when you think about the future. But there is a flaw in their design. The system requires your ignorance to function. It requires you to believe the lies in the textbooks they funded and the news stations they own. The moment you stop being a human resource and start being a conscious human being, their grip loosens. The moment you seek the truth, you become a glitch in their matrix. This was the story of the man who built the system you can never escape. But now that you've seen the blueprints, the choice is yours. Will you remain a tenant, or will you reclaim your soul? Perhaps we'll never meet again. So make sure you aren't just another number in their ledger. Follow Nitex mindset for the truth that was never meant for you to hear. Stay awake. Stay free.